Welcome to Storytime Digital Media. I'm your host, Megan Fox, and I'm here with Kevin DuJan, and we are talking about the Tinley Park low-income housing scandal. We have found some things through Foia that we wanted to go over today and give you an update about what is happening in the city of Tinley Park. Tonight there's a big meeting, another village meeting, and more citizens who are upset about this project are scheduled to come forward and talk to the board about how they feel about what's been going on. And today Kevin and I found through Foia some very interesting emails between Amy Connolly and Buckeye developer David Petroni, and also other people that work at Buckeye. And so that you remember, this is who we're talking about. This is Amy Connolly. Here she is. And she is the planning director of the Tinley Park Village, who has been caught changing code without going through the proper zoning procedures so that this developer, Buckeye Community Hope Foundation, could put in a low-income housing project in a place on Oak Park Avenue that was scheduled to be commercial and residential mix, with commercial on the bottom, residential on top. So there are some definite problems that have happened. The whole village is upset, and we're getting to the bottom of it through these email drops. Kevin, do you have anything to add here?
Well, you know, what's interesting about this is that there's a lot of moving pieces. And so this is the kind of scandal that a lot of it is very time consuming for people to go through all the emails and all the documents. And it's really hard if you don't do this all the time to know what's important. So, you know, doing a Freedom of Information Act request to the village, looking at Amy's emails and other documents relating to Buckeye, it really is a time-consuming thing. So what's interesting is we're at a stage where people are only starting to get a handle on exactly what is out there and what's there. And I'm very concerned that the village, remember on February 4th, you know, the mayor came out and he said, you know, we're going to have an independent investigation. We're going to get to the bottom of all this. And then in the Chicago Southtown, the Chicago Tribune publication, in an article by Mike Nolan, he was saying that the village is now saying they want all this wrapped up in 40 days, that they want to rush whatever investigation they're going to have, and they want it all to be finished within 40 days. And coincidentally enough, that's right around the time that Buckeye needs an investigation to be done so they can go ahead and move on with the development. So it seems to me that the village is playing games, that the village really doesn't want to get to the truth. And that's very concerning to me, because if you start just looking through these emails and other documents, there's shadiness that has gone on.
And to remind everyone, this is David Petroni. He is the developer who has come into Tinley Park and been doing all these deals with Amy Connolly to get this building built, and actually 7 more is in the plan. He is from Ohio. He works for this, they call themselves nonprofit, but it's a total joke. They're really profiteers is what they are, because they're buying federal tax credits to offset their costs. And so basically they're building a building where 90% of the costs are paid for by federal tax dollars. And they're making huge money on this. Research has been done that the CEO of this company is making, like, I don't know, 300, some huge amount of money for 15 hours of work a week. You know, like 300,000 a year. So, you know, this is not a non-for-profit company. And what they do is they're profiteering off of Illinois' financial problems, because in other states you buy these federal tax credits and it's like 75 cents on the dollar. In Illinois, they're getting $1.10 on the dollar for federal tax credits, because Illinois is so far in the hole financially. So this is not about doing community good. It's about making money off of a dying state. And so we found these emails that just goes to further the narrative that Amy Connolly was involved in just improper workings with this guy, with this village, with Buckeye, to to have this low-income housing development put into Tinley Park with no benefit to the residents. Now, here is an email that we found, and I would also like to say that the village is really playing games with Foia already. I think some of you remember that during one of the village meetings, I think it was on February 4th, Jake Vandenberg, who is a board member, stood up and said he had 1,200 documents that were
2,500.
I'm sorry, 2,500 documents that were so disturbing to him. Well, when I FOIA'd for all the emails that Amy Connolly sent to Buckeye and Buckeye sent to Amy and anything regarding this reserve project, I was expecting to get back somewhere around 2,500 documents. I only got back about 100, and most of them were duplicates of drawings of this facility. I got a handful of emails. I'm sure that these are not all of them. I've already received a tip that they sent me emails. As you can see up in the corner there, it says June 22. They only sent me emails from June forward. I found out through an unnamed source that there are emails starting in March. So why didn't they give me the March emails? So we have to ask for those again. And this is what villages do when they don't want you to find something. They hide it. They just don't give it to you. They break the law, and then you have to run around trying to get, playing detective, trying to find out what you are missing.
And again, Megan, it should be noted that the village is represented by Kleinthorpe Jenkins, and this is a law firm with a history in Illinois of advising public bodies to break the FOIA law, to not follow the Open Meetings Act. So this is a law firm that when it represents a village, you should be very suspicious that they're represented by Kleinthorpe Jenkins, because again, this is the exact same kind of games playing that we saw in Orland Park, and the Village of Orland Park had to be sued in Chancery Court because it was playing games with FOIA production. The Orland Park Public Library had to be sued because of FOIA production problems. And now here we are, Village of Tinley Park, represented by Kleinthorpe Jenkins, and they are playing FOIA games too.
That's right. Same thing. So in this email that we're looking at that's on the screen right now, it's very interesting to me because it looks like this is written by someone named Zachary Crofton from Buckeye, and he's writing to Amy Connolly and telling her basically we need to identify a local or regional plan that is 1, less than 5 years old, 2, not a consolidated plan or annual action plan, and 3, is consistent with the project we are proposing. And then he tells her the specific things he needs. So basically, this is Buckeye telling Amy Connolly, look, we want to put this project in, but we have all these things requirements we have to meet in order to get our federal, approval. And so here's what we need you to find for us. I think that's pretty strange for a company to be asking a village planner to find ways around in their laws to make this happen for them. Don't you?
Well, I really think so too. And what's interesting is today, a very nice lady who posts on the Citizens of Tinley Park Facebook page, she has to go to some village hearing about a fence that she wants to put up. And let's just contrast what Amy Connolly and Buckeye, what they do together over, their emails. Contrast that with what a regular homeowner in Tinley Park has to go through just to get a fence. And how Amy Connolly is not trying to work around things to help a regular homeowner. Regular homeowners can't count on the village, to give them any leeway at all, and put them through just an absolute nightmare just to put up a fence. But yet, look at the collusion and look at basically Buckeye's just telling Amy what to do, like Amy's an employee of Buckeye.
That's right. And also, you will notice in these emails, as I pull them up here one at a time, how helpful she is to them and how thankful they are to her. And so here she is asking him, oh, the terminology is confusing to me. Are you talking about a comprehensive land use plan? Or so she's asking him, please, let me know what exactly type of plan we need to find for you to make it work. Okay, so he goes on to explain what he's looking for. They're looking for a plan that generally mentions a goal of creating, preserving, supporting affordable housing in Tinley Park, or a larger geography that includes Tinley Park. Well, you know what? There is no such thing in Tinley Park. There's the Legacy Code, and the Legacy Code doesn't say anything about mentioning creating or preserving affordable housing in Tinley Park. So already right here, Tinley Park doesn't have what they're looking for, because Tinley Park already has affordable housing, so they don't have any plans set forth to make more, because they already have lots of it. So already you can see in this email that it's a stretch.
Oh yeah, and Tinley Park actually has apartments that are renting for lower than what this Buckeye would be charging for this supposed low-income housing project. So if you already have too many apartments and condos that the market will not sustain rents, that are very high, and you can get very affordable apartments already, what is the point of this project? And so here's Amy Connolly acting like she is an employee of Buckeye. It is a complete contrast to how this woman behaves when you are a homeowner in Tinley Park and you need something done. Complete contrast.
Oh, that is absolutely, absolutely true. One of the main problems about all of this is that this woman is so helpful to Buckeye, but yet here she's on Cyberbia, which is this social website she goes on to ask people how to do her job. And all she does is complain about people getting variances that she thinks they don't deserve. Okay, so but then yet again, she's going to go look for how to sneak in new code changes just so this particular company can get in.
Well, also on that Cyberbia site, she repeatedly says things about that she doesn't think the codes need to be enforced, or she thinks that the codes get in the way of different things. So she has a very negative view towards the codes when it comes to something she wants. So if she wants something to come in, then the codes don't matter. But if it's a homeowner that wants to build a fence or something, then she wants to enforce it against the people. Do you see that kind of attitude from her in the different Siberia postings?
Oh, definitely. And
I got that as an ideological attitude from her.
She also seems like if she doesn't like you, if you're her neighbor that has barking dogs that she doesn't like, she's keeping a running list of all the code violations that that you have. And
Right.
Yet someone showed, I wish I had this picture up. I don't have it to share right now, but one of the people who's been posting these citizen sleuths, on the citizens of Tinley Park, found he had been cited for his garbage cans being barely visible from the street. They were pulled around the side of the house, and you could see the side of one a little bit sticking out, and he got a citation for that. Well, somebody went and did a Google Earth search of Amy Connolly's house, and her garbage cans are sitting right out on the driveway in front of her garage, right out in the middle for everyone to see. So she is in violation of the garbage can, code, but she has not received any violation. She hasn't received any citations.
Exactly.
And if you look at this email that's up on the screen right now, here she's saying, okay, you've explained this to me properly, and oh, I get it, but we don't have any of these. We don't really have one of those plans. We do have a neighborhood revitalization plan in the form of the Legacy Plan Code for downtown Tinley Park. This is a plan to create more housing. It doesn't specifically mention affordable housing, but all housing along Oak Park Avenue. So she attaches the plan that discusses the market analysis and the reason for the code and blah, blah, blah. And she says, she even notes here about the residential versus commercial zoning. That it says, we rezoned large swaths of Oak Park Avenue to neighborhood general. And she's basically admitting that what they're looking for is not under this code. So it's so bizarre that she's trying and trying, to fit into their narrative and what they want to do. And then it gets worse. And let me find that one for a minute. But what are you seeing so far here, Kevin?
What I'm seeing here again is if you look at her postings on Cyberbia, and that's CYBURBIA, and that's this message board, this internet forum that is for people who work in city planning and different government offices around the country. And what Amy Connolly was doing is she was going on the Cyberbia forum, and to me she made herself look like she was incompetent. Not only did she show her ideological bias, by saying things like the code shouldn't matter when the village wants something to come through, just ignore the code. But she also was incompetent because she would be asking questions of these other people on the Cyberbia forum, really basic things about how to do her job, just her day-to-day job duties. She wouldn't know how to do something, so she'd go on the Cyberbia and she'd ask these strangers that all had just screwball names, like she called herself Southside Amy. Other one, is Happy Cat 27 or Smurf 29 or whatever the heck. These are just the little internet handles that they would use in that suburbia thing. So she's taking advice from these clowns on how to do her things. Meanwhile, this woman has a compensation package of $160,000 a year with all the perks and benefits, including a vehicle that the village provided for her. So
and now here you see that you were just saying it seems like she doesn't know how to do her job. Here we have Zach Crafton from Buckeye Community Hope Foundation telling Amy, "Oh, thank you for your help. I appreciate it. I filled out the form for you. We would just need your signature on the second tab if you're comfortable doing so. I went ahead and listed the 2011 Legacy Code and mentioned that it supplements the 2009 Legacy Plan. This way, the plan falls within the 5-year range that they need." So this guy is now filling out forms for her. Do you think that any of the citizens who needed fences were filling out Amy's forms for her?
Oh, she wouldn't have allowed that. But what I find is really interesting too is you caught the thing where they were playing with the dates and playing with the years and,
Yes.
and coming up with ways to make it fit within the whatever. And she's totally going along with this. Like, it's very obvious in these emails that this guy, Zach at Buckeye, is filling stuff out for her, and they're doing it to try to game the system, and she's totally helping him. That should not be her job. Her job is to enforce what's there and to do what's best for the people of Tinley Park. Her job is not to help Zach Crofton at Buckeye game the system and try to have end runs around stuff. That's not her role.
That's right. That is not her role. And I'm sorry, I'm still looking for this other one, but that is not her role to do what it appears that she's doing, which appears to be, I mean, look at this. Look at this. Look at this one. Amy, let's go with the plan, legacy, and wrap your info around the form. Hopefully we get credit for your work with the legacy plan. This is from Dave Petroni. So they're just gonna make it fit, is what they're saying. Even though it doesn't fit, we're gonna make it fit. Thanks for your help, Amy.
Right. If you remember this, David Petroni, he is that obnoxious man that spoke at the February 2nd meeting. He kept his mouth shut on February 4th because someone must have told him that he really made Buckeye look terrible, the things that he was saying. But this is the guy that came out and he tried to slander and smear the residents of Tinley Park, trying to scare anyone so that they wouldn't want to speak out against this project. This is an Alinsky methods tactic where you want to make your opponent scared to speak out by saying if anyone speaks up, then there's a terrible person who doesn't want this housing project to come in. Mm-hmm. And at the very end of the night, he made threats. He threatened the village that if his project didn't go through, that there'd be consequences, which everyone saw as a thinly veiled lawsuit threat from this clown. But look at him. This is this clown, and when he was speaking, he would talk about how, oh, the village employees were so helpful to us, and they really helped us out. Clearly, he's talking about Amy Connolly as one of those people.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's who he's talking about. Absolutely. I mean, they say it several times in these emails. Oh, thank you, Amy Connolly. Thank you, Amy Connolly. You're so helpful, so helpful. Well, those people who came to speak at the village about how hard it was to get a fence, they weren't saying, look how great Amy Connolly was. They were saying it's damn near impossible. Now, look at this. This is Amy saying right here. Can everybody see that? Okay, there it is. Admitting that she can see that there's a problem here. Zach, I'm not 100% sure I have the ability to sign this, basically, is what she's saying. I'm a staff member, and the final agreement on whether or not the plans meet codes and land use plans rests with the Plan Commission and Village Board. I'm uncomfortable signing a document that says I certify anything because I cannot do that. I'd rather you did this without my signature. I do think the conceptual plans I've reviewed appear consistent with plans and codes, but I'm not the final arbiter of this. Any way around this?
I think that's very damning that she's saying any way around this.
She knows she's not the one who can make this decision. She admits she's the one who cannot make this decision. And yet she's asking them for their thoughts on how to get around it, how to get around the rules of the village. This is the smoking gun, if you ask me.
And the other thing too is, so then after this happens June 23rd. So she's admitting that she can't sign off on things, that she can't certify things. But then later we find out that she sends a letter on behalf of Buckeye saying that, you know, it meets different codes and all this stuff. So then she'll contradict herself later. In this time in June, she's saying that she can't sign things, she can't certify things. Is there a way around this? But then you'll see later that she sends things that she is signing off on stuff.
Right.
And it never goes to the planning commission to be able to say yes or no. And it never goes to the actual board for them to say yes or no. Amy does find that workaround. So she says, is there any way around this? And then later she finds a way around it.
That's right. That's right. She finds a way around it. And she brings in the village attorneys to help her. Now look at, here is Zach Crafton. Hold on, let me make sure I get this up here. Here's Zach Crafton saying that this all sounds good. Let me, off the top of my head, I can't really think of how to get around it, but I'm going to try, basically. Here it is. Hold on, share with everyone. Here we go. That sounds good to me, David. Amy, off the top of my head, I'm not sure what the appropriate workaround is. I'll give it some thought. I mean, just more of this collusion between this company and Amy Connolly in order to get what they want done.
And let me just spell this out clearly. It is not appropriate for a government employee to be speaking to some developer about working around things and getting around anything. She should be fired just for that alone. That is not her role. It is not her job to work around codes. That is an inappropriate conversation that this woman should have never been having with anybody.
Well, wait till you see this, because now here's the evidence that the Kleinthorpe Jenkins attorneys are up to their necks in it. Here's what Amy comes back with after they talk about the workaround. She went to the village attorney, which is Thomas Melody at KTJ. Spoke with our attorney today. He thinks I can sign the certificate of consistency, but I do need to add a statement to my signature, which is basically saying, I believe these statements are true. However, my signature does not constitute plan approval, and I do not represent the Village of Tinley Park Plan Commission. But this is all baloney, because her signature on it is what got them the approval at the Illinois HUD office.
And let's just spell it out. This Thomas Melody at Kleinthorpe Jenkins, she doesn't say specifically that he is the one. She says, spoke with our attorney today. But Thomas Melody is the one who is always listed as village attorney, and Kleinthorpe Jenkins is the law firm that the village has hired to be their attorney. So
it was one of them. Yeah.
It most likely is Thomas Melody that she's speaking about, because he's the one that has a brass placard already made at the village board meeting. So he seems to be the only one that represents Kleinthorpe Jenkins at these meetings. So I'm assuming that is who she's speaking about, but that is the law firm. And now they're basically advising her, well, here's a way that you can work around things. And that, again, is not appropriate. I don't believe that that's ethical of him to have given her advice that she can sign something that she's not really supposed to sign. But he says, here, say this at the end of signing it. If you have to say this big, long thing after signing your name, that should mean that you were not authorized to sign that certificate of consistency. That certificate of consistency does not require someone to add a big provision after signing their name.
Do you also find it strange that instead of going to the village, like the mayor or the board members, Amy Connolly went to the attorney? Why didn't she go, if she wanted to know if she could sign this, but she knew the planning commission was the one who had to approve it, and so was the board? Why didn't she go to the planning commissioners? Why didn't she go to the board and say, okay, this builder wants to build here, and they're trying to get me to make it fit, so what should I do? And they think I can sign this, but I'm not sure I can. Why didn't she go to Jake Vandenberg?
Because the answer would have been no.
Right.
No.
Right. What does KTJ have involved? What is their connection where they also are sneaky on the side with Amy Connolly, giving her ideas on how to sign stuff she shouldn't be signing? Was anyone else involved in this? Did anyone else know she was up to this? And so was the attorney?
I'll give you my opinion on that based on observing Clanthorpe Jenkins for the last 3 years. They're the kind of law firm that I think when someone comes to them and says, we want to do this bad thing, how can we do it? They just think of ways to help them do the bad thing. They don't tell the person, you can't do this, Amy, that's wrong, that's bad. They just go ahead and give her advice on how to do the bad thing. There's something wrong with that law firm. There is something wrong with Clanthorpe Jenkins in the way that they approach how they should be acting as attorneys with public bodies. They consistently are caught giving these public bodies bad advice that goes against what the public wants or needs or what's right. They do seem to always want to help these public bodies do whatever bad thing they want to do. They never seem to be telling them, no, you can't do that. You have to stop. Amy, you can't do this. Instead, someone at Clanthorpe Jenkins, we think Thomas Melody, told her, oh, here's how you can go ahead and do that. Just add these sentences at the end of your signature. But the form probably didn't have any space to even do that because that's not a typical thing to do. You don't have a form that needs someone to sign something, then under it you have to have a 200-word explanation for why I'm doing this today, but I'm not authorized to do it, but I'm doing it anyway.
But I'm not responsible.
I'm not responsible, and I don't have the final authority, but I'm signing it anyway.
I mean, do you think would Amy Connolly do that for someone who wanted a fence?
No, no. And Clanthorpe Jenkins wouldn't sit there and try to help a member of the community get their fence. They only want to screw the public. That law firm, their specialty is hire us and we will give you advice on how to screw over the public, and hopefully none of us get caught. But in Orland Park, they got caught. They got busted. And Village of Orland Park cumulatively had to pay out over $67,000 between the village and the public library over Freedom of Information Act violations and Open Meetings Act violations, all because of Clanthorpe Jenkins' advice.
Well, let's also talk about the violations that KTJ has now led Tinley Park into doing, because they've already had Foia violations and OMA violations. They're violating Foia right now. They have not responded to some of my Foia requests. They've just ignored it and pretended like I said something I didn't say. They're not handing over all the documents. I know there are emails from March that weren't included when they sent me the emails. I asked for all emails between Amy Connolly and David Petroni, and apparently there are some missing from March that are supposed to be really upsetting. And I still don't have those because they're hiding them on purpose. They are breaking the OMA during their village meetings when they are requiring people to sign in with their names and their addresses. That is illegal. It is against the OMA. It has actually been in a binding opinion by the Attorney General of Illinois, and she has said it is intimidation to require people to sign in with their names and full addresses.
And not only are they making people sign in with their full names and full addresses, but they have 3 armed police officers in the room, and they have an armed police officer standing next to a village employee with a clipboard. You want to tell me that that is not intimidation when you have an armed cop standing there with the village employee, and the village employee is telling people to put their addresses down? Even
worse, at the February 2nd village meeting, they had a uniformed police officer manning that clipboard. So the uniformed police officer with the gun was shoving the clipboard in people's faces and having them sign it. Now, if a police officer wearing a gun comes up to you and shoves a thing in your face and says, put your name and address on here, aren't you more willing to, more going to do that because it's a police officer?
The other thing they did too is people at the February 4th meeting were asking questions of Amy Connolly. That was the Planning Commission meeting. Amy Connolly is on the Planning Commission, and at an open meeting in Illinois under our Open Meetings Act, the public can ask questions of anyone. The public can address anyone. Now, it's not required that anyone responds, but the public is allowed to address anybody they want. Now, the Village of Tinley Park,
they kept telling someone to look at please address your comments to the commission chair. No, you can't tell people who to look at.
You can address it to anybody. Now, it's not required they answer. It's not required that they respond, but you can address anyone that you want. You cannot restrict speech that way. So Tinley Park is going to get itself sued over Open Meetings Act violations if they keep this up.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And people are starting to get, wise to what they're doing. So those aren't the only things that they're doing that are breaking public comment laws in the Open Meetings Act. They're trying to set up new rules tonight. Actually, they're going to vote on it, and I hope they get voted down. One of the new rules that they want to put into play is to make people sign up a day in advance through email or call the village to say they want to speak, and also to submit their topics on little cards, little note cards ahead of time, and then the chairman or the mayor will call on them when their topic comes up. Now, is that legal?
No, that's not legal. The Open Meetings Act is very clear. It's very easy to read. And this is what makes me angry about that Kleinthorpe Jenkins law firm. The Open Meetings Act is very clearly written. It's very clear to see the intent of our legislature that passed the Open Meetings Act. The Open Meetings Act is all about allowing free speech, trying to facilitate more communication, more participation, more involvement of the public in our government. And Tinley Park really is trying to roll that back. They're trying to make it harder for people, to make it very intimidating for people to come and speak. They want to put these added hoops in there of you have to submit your comment ahead of time and all this nonsense, and making there are Open Meetings Act binding opinions by the Attorney General saying that you are not required. You cannot require the public to have to put comments in ahead of time or let the government know ahead of time what you're going to say. All of this is illegal and nonsense, and there you have that Thomas Melody, that little clown sitting there from Kleinthorpe Jenkins. He knows this is all illegal what they're doing, but he facilitates it. He allows them to do illegal things. And this is the same law firm that was letting Amy Connolly get away with writing her name down, but then putting 100 words after that explaining that she didn't have authority to sign, but she's signing anyway. This is why Kleinthorpe Jenkins is a menace, an absolute menace.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, aren't these the people who wrote the book on the sunshine laws?
Yeah.
And it's really very sad because it seems like at first we thought maybe they're just incompetent, but it cannot possibly be just incompetence. These people are diabolical. They wrote the book called the Sunshine Laws, and Sunshine Week is something that happens every spring in Illinois, and we're supposed to be celebrating the Open Meetings Act and Foia laws that keep our governments transparent. And these idiots wrote the book called the Sunshine Laws, and they wrote in there all of this stuff that we just told you is not legal. They wrote it down and said, oh yeah, none of this is legal, and you have to do this and you have to do that. Then they turn around and they tell their clients that they can break the law. They advise them to stop people from speaking, advise them to try and control the content of their speech, making people sign registers, identify what party they're with. They actually try and have people identify what group they're with. What is this? The Soviet Union? They want to know all your associations before you can speak in front of a public board?
Well, it's all intimidation to keep people from speaking. And again, Kleinthorpe Jenkins, their business model seems to be to go to bad government boards, and that the board knows they're bad, and the board knows that they're corrupt. And I think Kleinthorpe Jenkins is a law firm that if you are a corrupt board, that you hire them because then they help you do corrupt things. That it's just like the mob has its group of people that they always hire to help them get away with stuff. Bad governments hire Kleinthorpe Jenkins to help them get away with doing bad things. That's the pattern that I have seen.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good in any way, and I hope that tonight that the people of Tinley Park are going to hold them accountable. So tonight there is a meeting at the Village Hall. It is at 8:00 p.m. It is open to the public, and yes, you may go and say whatever you wish for whatever the time limit is. Let's talk about what's actually legal to do. Public boards can limit the time that the public has to speak, and that's reasonable because what if some guy gets up and wants to talk about, the squirrels in his backyard for 30 minutes? No one has time for this. So that's a reasonable thing to do, is to set a time limit and say each person has 3 minutes or each person has 5 minutes to speak.
To clarify something you said, though, so whether Megan Fox thinks that the squirrels in his yard are important or not doesn't matter. Because if that man wants to come and speak to the government about his squirrels, then he is allowed to do so. And no one can say that that doesn't fit the agenda or that's not what we're talking about. So that man can talk about whatever he wants to talk about. However, if they say you can have 3 minutes, then that's all he gets is 3 minutes. And that is reasonable. You can restrict the time someone can speak, but you cannot restrict the topic.
No, that's just basic freedom of speech 101 that all of these attorneys should have taken in law school. Actually, they should have taken it in 5th grade when they studied government. And it's very upsetting to me that it seems like none of the attorneys at Kleinthorpe Jenkins understand what the First Amendment is, and they are on a mission to silence the public, to restrict public participation in government, and somebody needs to look into that. I don't know how they can continue to keep their law licenses when they are actively fighting the public under their First Amendment rights.
And specifically, this is the First Amendment right to petition. It is the First Amendment right to petition government for change or for redress of grievances. This is one of our fundamental rights in our Bill of Rights, our First Amendment, and this is what separates us from other countries. This is what makes America great, that the American people have the right to challenge their elected officials, that we do not have royalty here, we do not have lords and ladies or kings and queens. These people sitting on the village board may think they're a bunch of queens, but they're not. They're not royals. You are allowed to confront them, and you are allowed to question them, and you are allowed to question this Amy Connolly as part of this planning commission. She has the right to not answer if she doesn't want to, but no one can say you cannot address her. Or no one can say you cannot address this topic or that topic, or you have to give us your topic in advance. There is none of that. And sure, Village of Tinley Park, you can have your armed police people standing around like that, intimidating people, having a cop there, and having some woman with a clipboard race up whenever anyone's going to speak. That's the woman who did it on February 2nd. You can see her by one of the arrows. She's wearing purple with the glasses. And that's the clipboard. She had that clipboard that she would make people sign their names and addresses if they wanted to speak. She had a cop with her, standing right with her. And the implication was, if you don't do what she says, well, then you're going to have problems with that cop. And that just, it turns my stomach that Tinley Park did this to people. And that Kleinthorpe Jenkins is sitting there allowing this to happen. If I was an attorney representing this board and I saw this going on, I'd say, woman with the purple clipboard, you sit your butt down. You cannot be making people sign that. And police officer, please leave this room. You are not needed here to be intimidating people. But Kleinthorpe Jenkins allows this to happen.
Yeah, it's upsetting, and I think that people are so used to it that they don't even see when it's being done to them. And I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, of course there's police there. Of course it's the village. Of course the police are there." They're really not needed unless there's some disturbance of some kind. Which even with all the angry 1,000 people that showed up to the 2 meetings, there still weren't any disturbances. Those people were very under control. They were very rational. Nobody was causing any scene or doing anything illegal. And so, is it really too much to ask that the uniformed police officers just be down the hall somewhere ready to come and help if they need to? Is that too much to ask?
Instead of standing in the room as if this is like a murder trial with a gang kingpin or something, that they are in, like, it is not normal for 3, not just one Megan, but they had 3.
Right. At
both meetings, they had 3 uniformed police officers stationed around the room, and that was there to intimidate the public. That was not there for any serving any purpose. They were there to intimidate the public.
Yeah, they don't need it. And the people of Tinley Park, I think, have proven to be very rational, reasonable people who are just upset with their village, and they have every right to be there yelling at them if they want to, because they were all doing it within the law. They were all being respectful. They were all being, and heck, let's be honest, you don't need to be respectful if you don't want to be. I mean, but these people really are, and they have been very controlled. And so it just doesn't seem necessary to have all the police presence. And
I want to stop you for a second, because you started talking about some respectful thing or another. And again, the Open Meetings Act does not provide for that.
No, you're right.
So Tinley, so you're from the suburbs, so you put things out there too that aren't under the law. the villages, they cannot determine what's respectful and what's not respectful. They have to listen to the public however the public wants to communicate itself. And so sometimes villages that are represented by Clythorpe Jenkins, they say things that they can restrict, no personal attacks. And
yeah, that's my favorite. No personal attacks.
And that is a violation of free speech. They have
Right.
to listen to what the public has to say.
Well, because it's subjective, and you can't. Who's going to be the arbiter of what's a personal attack, and who's going to decide what's repetitive? That's another one that Tinley is trying to put in. Tinley Park is trying to say that no repetitive comments will be allowed. Oh, well, what's repetitive, and who's gonna say what's repetitive? And if 50 people want to stand up and say they're angry about the same darn thing, then you have to listen.
And in Orland Park, there was a board member of the Orland Park Public Library. Her name is Diane Jennings. And Diane Jennings' favorite tactic, whenever there'd be any criticism of the board or criticism of any staff members, she would start shouting, no personal attacks, no personal attacks, and to silence whoever was speaking. And that was against the law, and the library ended up having to pay a $55,000 settlement out because of violations like that, like Diane Jennings shouting, no personal attacks, and silencing and censoring people. So these are things that villages do. If they don't want to hear criticism, they'll just say, oh, that's not allowed. Our rules don't allow you to say that. That's a personal attack. So
Right.
any criticism of Amy Connolly, they would want to shout out, that's a personal attack. You can't say that. But a village cannot restrict speech that way. And Clythorpe Jenkins knows this. They've lost on this repeatedly. But yet here they are trying to put new restrictions in Tinley Park's public comment policy. And they know full well that they will lose when this goes to court. They get sued, they get challenged on this. They know that they will lose. But they do it anyway because, Megan, Clythorpe Jenkins will make a ton of money on the legal billing. So they'll let the village do something they know is wrong and they know is against the OMA. They'll let them do that because then Clythorpe Jenkins gets to bill all the billable hours when that issue is adjudicated and fought in the court or fought with the Attorney General's office. So Clythorpe Jenkins makes a lot of money whenever they let a village do something stupid like this.
And one of probably the most egregious things they ever did was on that January 20th meeting at the Orland Park Public Library, when Nancy Healy, who was the president of the board, decided she was going to tell me she could restrict the content of my speech and that I was no longer allowed to talk about computers. And she said it to you too. And it was the only meeting we ever went to when an attorney from Clythorpe Jenkins wasn't seated at the table. He wasn't there. There wasn't anybody there from Clythorpe Jenkins to refute what she was saying. And so when she said we weren't allowed to talk about the topic we had chosen to talk about, I challenged her and you challenged her and you said, well, who told you could say that? And she said, our attorneys have advised us. And you said, well, which one? And she hesitated and she wouldn't say a name. And then she said, Clythorpe Jenkins. So we have confirmation that Clythorpe Jenkins apparently told her that she could restrict the content of our speech. And yet, conveniently, not one attorney from Clythorpe Jenkins was there for us to say, that's not true. Tell her right now that she cannot keep us from speaking about our chosen topic. See how they did that? They weren't there on purpose.
Right. It's that firm. And people in the legal community all throughout Chicago, whenever I talk about this firm, they say that firm has a very bad reputation, that firm is offensive in its behavior, and that this is what this firm does, that bad government boards hire this firm because this firm lets them get away with doing these bad things to the public. And so it is no surprise to me that Amy Connolly is calling up Clythorpe Jenkins and saying, hey, I want to do something bad. How
Help me do something bad.
How do I get away with doing this bad thing? And Clythorpe Jenkins, I can so easily see them doing this, saying, oh, Amy, just sign her name, but then write this under it.
Well, that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did. She knew, and we have the email proof, that she should not be doing what she was doing or signing what she was signing, but she did it anyway with the help of a Clythorpe Jenkins attorney. That's all we really have time for today. Tonight is the village board meeting, and so there should be more fireworks, and we'll be there to report on that and see how that goes and bring you some more video on what is going on with the public comment rules. And if they pass these new illegal rules, we'll definitely be sure to share that with you very soon. So thanks for tuning in, and have a blessed day. From Storytime Digital Media, we wish you all a very blessed week, and we'll see you later.